As someone who's had these voices for a long time, I've learned to differentiate between the two and often reading from material to help me differentiate. So I'm going to go into what voices are and how to separate the different kinds. And really, there's only two. So there's intra voices. These ones are which sound like thoughts. So they're happening inside the mind, but they feel dissociated. So it might be like, how you think to yourself. You can sit there and think purple elephant, and that happens inside your mind. It's almost like that happening, except it feels dissociated. So it feels alien to you. It doesn't feel attached to you. And usually, in this kind of voice, it's a dissociated thought, and it's because your individuality, who you are, hasn't incorporated the meaning in that voice's structure. So you can think of it almost coming from a dark place in the mind, and you don't want to look into that darkness because you're afraid of it. It's what Carl Jung would refer to as the shadow. And so with that kind, that can get quite distressing with people because it can remove their feeling of autonomy, and it can also make them feel like they're losing control over their own mind, because sometimes it can get quite intense and you can get quite a lot of them, and it gets quite out of hand very quickly. But really, those ones are probably the easiest to treat. You just need a good therapist or a good talking CBT therapist or someone like this. And what you want to do is keep a journal of those happenings, and you want to write them all down. And then when you go in and see your therapist, you want to talk to them about those individual components on the list, the voices on the list. And then you want to try to see what psychical energy those things have. So I'm probably going to have to use some horrible words here, but we all know that there are words in everyday life that seem to have very big effects. We can all think of them, ones that you can't say out loud, ones that you wouldn't say around your family. It's because those words contain energy, right? And it means that when it's spoken out loud, it has an effect. It's almost like, Lord Voldemort, the he who shall not be named. There's fear that surrounds that word. And so what you want to do is you want to talk to the therapist about how you can explore the meaning of that word to you individually and what's behind it. Why is it so terrifying that your mind is trying to push it away, and then it happens as an intrusive thought that kind of mimics what a voice is like? And if you can do that with all of them going on, you remove the psychical energy of it, and it becomes integrated. It becomes part of you, which is what Carl Jung called individuation. But simplistically, all it means is making yourself whole, not having any elements of yourself which you disassociate from. And you, through talking to a qualified therapist, get used to understanding what parts of you are normal, what parts you need to work on, and all this stuff. The second category is actual hallucinations. So voice hallucinations. And these ones are which happen outside of your mind. And these are slightly more complicated. If you've seen my other video on what causes hallucinations, I break down scientifically prediction-based models for hallucinations, which is supported by science and true to my own experience. What this effectively is that your delusional thoughts that lots of people have and suffer from with these conditions create strong expectations attached to moments, triggers, events, and people. And these delusional worlds, these realities, when they've created expectations for the brain, as soon as a moment, stress, or anything is triggering to that system, that little network in the brain, it promotes a hallucination. And in the case of voices hallucinations, your brain is trying to predict reality by creating the manifestation of what it thinks it's going to hear. And with that one, the way that you recover from that is by getting better at linearizing your thoughts. And what that means is getting your thoughts under control day to day. So not engaging in crazy fantasy lands, or not getting lost in conspiratorial thinking, or trying to remain grounded, which means, like I've mentioned in the other videos, not allowing your mind to go too far into the unknown and try to remain grounded. This sort of thing would look like keeping a journal of your thoughts, learning how to pay attention to yourself, And what I've noticed is the more I do that, the more that I encourage calm understanding about the world. And when an external hallucination happens, write it down. And then when you do see someone that you can talk to, talk about the moment it happened and what it was, and try to relate it to some delusional thinking that you've created. And if you can do that, you'll notice that there's a pattern, that these things are promoted from usually previous thinking or things that you don't really want to approach, like fears in the world and bizarre things that could happen but are very unlikely to happen. And bringing yourself back down to a more simple reality prevents the further development of these things. And I've had quite extreme prediction induced hallucinations, and really it gets so much easier and better over the time when you bring yourself back down to reality. But the hard part is, luckily there's medication, so it's a big benefit to you in that regard. But you really need to work on creating a solid foundation of your thoughts. If you believe in things like demons, ghosts, and all this stuff, you really want to try to bring yourself back down to a scientific foundation. But anyway, that's my two versions of voices today. I hope you enjoyed. Have a great day.